Hey guys, and welcome to the Band Rants channel, your home for NFL predictions, analysis, and of course, your periodic rant. And in this video, we're going to be finishing up the AFC South projections for 2020. I'm going to be going over the schedule for the Houston Texans and for the Jacksonville Jaguars and giving my predictions on wins and losses. If you like the video you see, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and enjoy. Alright, so we're starting off with the division champion Texans, and as you can see, they're 2-3 based on my last video. But we're going to go over all the games anyway. At the Chiefs, this is a Thursday night game. This is the Chiefs' first Super Bowl drop in 50 years. This is actually a game the Texans flipped last year, but I think that on a primetime slot with so much emotion for the Chiefs, I think there's a lot more that the Chiefs have to play for, and I think the Chiefs are going to have the advantage despite losing this game last year, the Texans. I think the Chiefs are going to have the edge. At home against the Ravens, this is actually a game that the Ravens won, but it was in Baltimore. Houston does have the home field advantage here, which did help them in a couple of surprise victories last year, but I think the Ravens are just really too dynamic on both sides of the ball. I think this is a game that even with the extra time, the Texans are not going to be able to flip. At Pittsburgh, however, this is probably the easiest game that the Texans could potentially flip in terms of offense. The Steelers' offense is a little bit of a slight rebuild in progress. I think there's a couple of pieces that are okay. James Conner, Smith-Schuster, Roethlisberger's coming back, and they've got a good offensive line. But the strength of the Steelers lies with the defense, and that's no secret. And the Texans lost their best offensive weapon in DeAndre Hopkins. And as good as Deshaun Watson is, he's going to have trouble here. Now, home against the Vikings, again, I think the Texans' defense is going to allow a lot of yardage to the Vikings wide receivers. And depending on if Dalvin Cook plays, because we know of his contract issues, but let's assume he is, I think he's going to gash the Texans' defense too, because the Vikings' offensive line, and really all of these offensive lines, are good enough to basically take J.J. Watt out of the equation, double block him, and you're good to go. So I think the Vikings can do that. Now, at home against the Jaguars is a game I have the Texans taking. The Jaguars, I think, are in worse position than the Texans, and we're going to cover them a little bit later. But I think the Texans are going to be okay in terms of what Deshaun Watson is going to do to these guys. I think the wide receivers that the Texans have, this is going to be their challenge, their easiest challenge thus far. At the Titans, I do have the Texans losing that one. I think Derrick Henry is going to gash the Texans in the opener and take them completely by surprise, but not too much in a sense where it's a surprise they won, but really just a surprise as to how little the Texans defense does to stop Derrick Henry. So now, at home against the Packers is actually going to be an upset win for the Houston Texans. Now, you don't usually hear upset win and Houston in the same sentence because usually Houston's a pretty good team. But there's been a lot of negative speculation on the Texans, even worse than I think the Patriots, because of the whole situation with DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien and everything else. But this is going to be a game that the Texans are going to take. I think the Packers are going to make a few mistakes in this game, some costly ones, and this is going to be a game the Texans actually completely take everyone by surprise and win. Now here's where things get better. Off the bye week, they will win in Jacksonville. They will get the sweep on the Jacksonville Jaguars. At Cleveland is a game that the Browns could flip, especially coming off the bye week. But I don't have the Texans losing this one. I've got them winning here. I think it's going to be a close game, I will say that, but it's not going to be a game the Texans will lose. At home against the Patriots what's interesting about this one is this is a game the Texans flipped last year in a very surprise win. Not so much, again, it's not because they're a bad team last year. They were good. They were dynamic, but you wouldn't expect the Patriots to lose to the Texans. It's not very often that they did under Bill Belichick, but they did last year, and I think that they are going to possibly lose again this year, just because I think it's really going to be close. It's a matter of what Bill Belichick's defense does to Deshaun Watson, and I think that they've got enough to at least compete. I don't know how good they're going to do, but I'm going to give them a slight victory. at the Lions is going to be an upset loss. And I really don't feel very strong about the Lions this year, but I think this is going to be an upset win for the Detroit Lions, upset loss to the Texans. They will bounce back at home against the Colts. I feel comfortable giving them the win at home against the Colts. I think they're going to be having a little bit of trouble in terms of the traveling to Indianapolis, but for now, they're going to take the first win. At the Bears, this is actually a game that could go either way. I think the Bears' offense is really having trouble finding themselves in terms of who their quarterback is going to be, but I think their defense is going to be, it is really good anyway. I think Khalil Mack's going to have himself a day, and this late down the stretch is really when playoff hopefuls like the Texans are at this point, because you take these 2 games away for now and they'll be 6-6, and that's really wild card contention, still in the division fight. Houston's going to have a dog in this fight, and I think the Bears are going to have a dog in it too, but I think the Texans are going to have more of a shot to really either repeat or three-peat, I think, as division champions, and I think the Bears might be a little bit behind. So I think the Bears are actually going to pull this one out. Now, at the Colts is a game the Colts are going to take. I have a series split, and it could be a situation with the Titans where this game could flip and the Texans drop this one. But for now, I feel comfortable giving the road loss, to the Colts and the Texans. Now, at home against the Bengals, this late down the season, this is going to say a lot about what the Texans accomplish. I think that they're going to actually they might lose this game, actually, and I'm going to explain that in just a minute. They're going to take this home game against the Titans, too. I think that at this point, the Texans are going to play for spoiler and finish 7-9. Now, it might seem a little bit unfair, but when I look at the games they're losing to, except for the Bengals, I'm seeing losses to dynamic offenses, except for really Chicago's, and Pittsburgh's is really not that great, but the Titans, the Vikings, the Ravens, the Chiefs, these are all games that are definitely going to be dropped. The Colts, I think, will upset a bit. Lions are going to probably surprise a lot of people. I think the Bengals this late are just going to be playing more for spoilers, much like the Texans are going to be doing to Tennessee to keep them out of the division championship. But with that being said, I have the Texans finishing at 7-9, and let's go to the Jags. Now, the Jags I actually have finishing really not that well. They are my pick to draft Trevor Lawrence, but I'm going to really try to be as fair as I can doing these predictions. Home against the Colts, I have them losing that one. I think the Colts and Phillip Rivers, I think they're going to be able to go into Jacksonville and take advantage of a broken defense. Jacksonville's lost a lot of players, and a couple players don't even want to be there. And a couple of them they've traded, or tried to trade even, but this is going to be a really mysterious kind of year for Jacksonville. At Tennessee is going to be a loss. The Titans are really just a dynamic team, and I don't see any difference in the Jacksonville Jaguars offseason that's positive enough to convince me that they could flip either one of these games. At home against the Dolphins on a primetime slot, this is interesting. I have no idea who the Dolphins quarterback's going to be. I have no idea if Gardner Minshew is really going to take major strides in year 2. But this is a game that the Jaguars could flip, and I actually have them doing so. And the reason for it is because I think that Miami is going to be the easiest game they'll have so far, despite their slight rebuild. At the Bengals, now this one is really going to be, I think, a narrow margin, but I have the Bengals actually winning this game. I have more faith in Joe Burrow and the passing options as far as receivers go for the Bengals than I do for Jacksonville. At the Texans, I've already covered that. At home against the Lions, they're off the bye, and I have the Lions actually taking this one. Because I think that, again, they're going to have trouble with the wide receivers. I'm not feeling too keen about Jacksonville's secondary, and altogether I don't see enough there to really suggest that they're going to pack a punch on offense. So at the Chargers. Even though they're coming off the bye, I'm usually pretty generous with this, but I think the Chargers, despite being a terrible home team, will have just enough to squeeze by Jacksonville. They're going to get swept by Houston. They're coming off the bye. I think that Deshaun Watson's on a higher caliber level than Jacksonville right now. At Green Bay is going to be a loss. I think that Green Bay is on a much better position to succeed than Jacksonville is right now. At home against the Steelers, this is going to be the toughest, I think, defensive challenge that Gardner Minshew is going to face. Not a chance. At home against the Browns, I actually have the Jaguars winning this one. And I wouldn't really call it an upset win because I don't necessarily think it is. I think this is just a game that I don't see Jacksonville being so horrible that they don't do anything of relevance. I think they're going to get maybe like 1 or 2 weird victories. At the Vikings, this is a game the Vikings will take, especially down the stretch. This is when teams are really going to try even harder to fight for seeding, the Vikings being one of them. This is their upset win against Tennessee. I know it seems unfair because they face them every year. It's a divisional game, but this is a game down the stretch the Jaguars will take in an upset, and they're going to drop their last 2 to the Ravens and the Bears. The Ravens as a whole, there's really very little chance. That would be a huge upset if they were to flip this Ravens game. But the Ravens, especially in December, have been playing very exceptional under Lamar Jackson. And at home against the Bears, again, I think the defensive challenge of the Bears might be too much for Gardner Minshew to basically overtake. And in Week 17, I think that really the Colts are going to have more to play for than Jacksonville. And it seems unfair because I have Houston playing spoiler to Tennessee. But I think Houston's better than Jacksonville overall. And that's where I have them at 3-13. So hopefully you guys watch this prediction. If you have anything to comment, please do so. I'll see you in the next one.